No, that is Los Angeles County Deputy Public Defender Philip Dubé. And also joining us, that is criminal defense attorney Rachel Kaufman. Great to see everyone tonight. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's talk about, all right, he's wild outside of the courtroom and then he goes into the courtroom. Here are the charges in Pennsylvania: forgery, tampering with records of identification, possessing instruments of a crime, false identification to law enforcement. Pleaded not guilty to those charges, but the more important charges obviously coming out of New York, which are murder in the second degree, criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree, criminal possession of a forged instrument in the second degree. So, Rick King, he's fighting extradition. Apparently, didn't throw in the towel right away. That's great. That's just going to run up your legal bill because you're going to get extradited, right?
Yeah, that's all that's going to do it. In terms of extradition, what happens is ultimately, if they have probable cause for an arrest and they file the proper paperwork for extradition, you're going to get extradited. I mean, the state has the state. Seeking the body has 30 days to come down and get you, and if they don't come and get you, then they get 60 more days, even if that doesn't take place. So ultimately, you're going to end up in New York.
Yeah, they're ready to take him too. I want to take a listen here. We've got Tom Dickey on News Nation, his attorney speaking, and apparently this guy is like, when you go to this part of the country, in Altoona area, he's the go-to guy. Let's take a listen.
I haven't seen any evidence that says that he's the shooter. So that's, you know, like I said earlier, and I wasn't kidding around. A couple of things. If you're going to report something, report it accurately. And remember, and this is not just a small thing, the fundamental concept of American justice is a presumption of innocence, and until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I've seen zero evidence at this point, and so I'm not even aware of what any charges. They haven't even had a prima facie case established yet, so they have to have a prima facie case established before they can the case can move on to the Court of Common Pleas. So the burden is always on the government, thank God, and that's their burden, and they're going to have to produce some evidence, and we're anxious to see it.
You know, Rachel Kaufman, we don't just have a prima facie. We got his face up. We got his face right on the video. That's prima facie.
We have his face. We have his manifesto. We have the same fake ID that he used at the hostel. It's still in his bag. We have the suspected weapon. I mean, I understand. You know, as a criminal defense attorney, I understand the need to remind the American people that, you know, people are presumed innocent, but to suggest that there's no evidence is a little silly.
Well, I don't think
given what we've all known.
It was very careful wording, Philip Dubé. It wasn't that there is no evidence. I haven't seen it, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't work for the police, so he hasn't seen it. He's just maybe he's heard about it, but he hasn't actually seen it.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, he could just be a fan of the shooter, you know, without some hardcore evidence that he, in fact, was the one out on that street in front of the hotel with that silencer. Right now, all you really have is just sort of like Slender Man, some Phantom of the Opera type image from afar. You know, there's really no way to see the contours of the face, the skull, the facial features, all of that stuff. All you really have is just some silhouette of a shooter. So to be fair to counsel, he has a point thus far, but this is a classic example of why I would not be giving a presser like this until all the evidence is in, because once the more solidifying, crystallized evidence starts coming in, he could end up looking like a buffoon.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a long history there, is my understanding, and has been very successful, long career. But Rick King, you know, I'm trying to figure this all out, because in most cases, like, we have no murder weapon. They've got what they believe is the murder weapon. They're going to be able to do ballistics on that, right? I know it's a ghost gun, but it still has the barrel that you're going to do the ballistics on.
Right. I think that you all have really laid it out perfectly. And what really the deal is that counsel for that gentleman, for Mr. Mangione, he said, hey, well, just what you said, I haven't seen it. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that they don't have the gun, they don't have the manifesto, they don't have the words that he wrote, they don't have the photo of him smiling brightly for the camera. And what you don't see is If they have that photo of him at the hostel, then they're tracking his movements, and they're tracking him, that photo of him from the hostel to where he ended up conducting this murder. So I think there's a lot more to what law enforcement has. And you have to always believe that law enforcement is going to give you enough to let you see, but not give you everything right now.
Yeah, Rachel Kaufman, as I go down the checklist of what we believe and what investigators have led us to believe that they have, right? So you've got the video surveillance, right? You've got a wrapper and a bottle that he left at the Starbucks where he's seen on video, so you could have DNA. You've got the murder weapon, so you may have a ballistics match to that as well. You've got the manifesto, which, depending upon how you interpret it, is basically at least a partial confession, right? So that you've got direct evidence, which is the video. You've got direct evidence, which is the manifesto. So this isn't a case that is based on solely circumstantial evidence. I mean, you've got it. I've never seen anything quite like what you have right here. And go ahead.
You seem to have, an individual who eventually, whether he wanted to be caught at that McDonald's or a few days later, wants to be the face of this vigilante movement, that there may be others involved, but that he doesn't feel like anyone's really taken this step yet. We also have his the book bag in Central Park that had the money in it. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the book bag.
I don't know what else they're going to get from that. Yeah, but there's that, and then there's this whole thing about his him having a very serious back injury.
Oh, we'll get to that. Don't worry. We'll get to that.
And then his family was looking for him. So he's definitely, in the past month or two, just kind of gone off the deep end. And so all signs point to this being, he wants to tell everyone, I think this was me.
Yeah.
Which is horrible for a defense attorney trying to defend it.
Philip Dubé, I think, I don't think there's a complete mental defense to this, but don't you think that's going to be the issue? I think if we go to trial, I can't imagine a lawyer's going to stand up in a courtroom in New York and say, you've got the wrong guy. If this stuff matches, if the DNA and the ballistics match, right? I don't think there's any way you're going to have a lawyer saying somebody else did it, or they just haven't proven this beyond a reasonable doubt. I think they've got to get inside his head.
It depends. You never know. He might be able to produce an alibi. If he can bring in several people to put him somewhere else at the time of that shooting, that is a straight up defense. I mean, seriously,
maybe he was driving around looking at the stars with that guy from Idaho.
Contemplating his navel. I'm just saying, it doesn't mean it's a winner, but at least it's something to say. A mental defense will not work in this particular case because of the sophisticated planning that was involved, his agenda in wanting to end this man's life. This was so clearly thought out, sophisticated, planned.
Well, what if he thought he was saving the world as a social justice avenger, saving people from the evils of United Healthcare?
Well, it might have been great under divine law if you were Joan of Arc, but here at modern law, when you're charged, but here at modern law in the state of New York, when you pull out a silencer and you blow somebody away in the back, you're going down. Yeah. I mean, seriously, it doesn't matter who you think you're trying to save unless you really have some evidence that you are defending some third party from imminent peril. But absent that, he needs to prepare to surrender.
Yeah, I was thinking more of a break from reality, like he didn't know what was right and what was wrong at the time, but he did flee. All right, Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at what Rachel was talking about, which is the spine condition that this defendant allegedly suffers from. We'll take a look at that. We'll bring in an expert to figure out what it's all about. Plus, coming up next hour.